The Frontline starts now.
Like our famous clip and the famous man said last week, playoffs. Well, we're back at it again because this week is the OHL playoff preview, and we'll touch on the NOJHL a little bit. Kortney Kenny, pleased to be joined by Harrison from the Garrison, as per the usual, and Ben's got a bit of a smirk down there, so go ahead, Ben.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
That quote, him and the guy that's like he's like the college coach or whatever. He's like, I'm a 42-year-old man, like or whatever. He gets like really mad at the media. Those two are like really good like sport moments in the States. I mean, John Tortorella kind of rivals it though.
Yeah.
Like anything he ever says. I love when he picks up the guy's phone at the press conference. He's like, yeah, I know your son sucks. Anyways, so good. Anyways, Harrison, lots of stuff to talk about.
Tons.
Yeah, it's kind of been it's been a week.
Yeah, it has.
It's going to be another week.
It's been a week of not knowing what the heck we're doing this week.
Yeah. So, but speaking of the things that we did know that we're going to do, we'll touch on, even though it'll be so outdated by the time this episode comes out. As of current recording, the Voodoos are tied 1-1 in their series with Hearst. We kind of predicted Doos in 6.
Yeah, that was a prediction.
They're on pace for that.
Yep.
Been a bit of high-scoring affairs up in Hearst, though.
Yeah, 5-6. It was 5-4 in the first game, and I believe it was 6-5. Yeah, 6-5 the second game. But one of them overtime just to kick off the series because things weren't tense enough.
No, exactly. Voodoos winning in overtime. Zach Turner with the overtime goal, and then the selfie stick celebration afterwards.
Beautiful.
It was so good too.
Shout out the Hearst cameraman for tracking it the whole way too.
Getting it too. And then the goals, I'm just looking at it right now on the screen. Both teams scored a goal in the first. Both teams scored 2 goals in the second. Both teams scored a goal in the third.
Oh my gosh.
Like, that's wild. Real quick, Matthew Como with the first goal of the game. Matthew McMillan tying things up late in the first. Wraith Smith right on the doorstep. Of course, who else but Hollywood. Justin Carrier tying the game up at 2. Then Cooper Moore midway through the second, putting the Lumberjacks up top. And then Justin Russo, who only had 2 goals all year, with an absolute snipe from the slot.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. It was just like, that was a rocket. What the hell, man?
And then, so that tied things up going into the third. Dylan McElhaney with an absolute great rebound goal, to give them the lead with 10 minutes left. And then we were like, okay, you just got to hold on. Matthew Como said, nah.
Yeah,
hold my lumberjack. And then Zach Turner in overtime giving the victory. I was talking to Chris Dawson at the time. Thankfully, I know you got Flow Hockey for this, but I don't have Flow Hockey, so he was nice enough to have me over to watch the game. And I was just about to say to him, Hearst has been dominating this overtime. They have all the possession. Then Zach Turner's like, I got this.
Yeah, it was off a play that Hearst had been kind of making all game. So when it happened, I was like, I'm not surprised. Whenever they were trying to exit their zone, they were hitting each other's skates a lot. And that even happened in game 2. But once it happened, it was just like, oh, Hearst did it again. Oh, it's in the net. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, game over.
Even the commentator, Martin Grenier, for that game was kind of like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm like, I watched that replay a bunch putting together the edit for it. And I was like, I don't know where the hell this puck is, but it's in the net, I guess.
Yeah, because even watching it in real time and then watching when you had it up, I was like, you never once do you really see the puck in the shot.
No, it hits the skate and then it's in the net at some point.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, nobody seemed to react. It was kind of almost, other than moment-wise being different, it was almost like Patrick Kane's cup-winning goal against Philadelphia, where he was the only one that reacted because Turner was the only one that kind of reacted and everyone else was just like, oh, I guess the game's over?
Cool.
Thanks. But then he was obviously quick to think, hey, maybe I should skate out and put my glove on my stick and do the selfie stick.
That selfie's really taken this year by storm.
Yeah, it has.
Once it happened, I think it was a college game or something. Yeah. It first popped up online, and then everyone just this is it. Yeah, this is the trend this year.
This is the new one. Last year was the gritty.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I'm kind of glad that died out.
I like this better than that.
He's doing it down at the other end of the table, producer Ben.
Someone call an ambulance. That doesn't look natural.
Someone call an ambulance, but not for me. The other thing that's wild about game 1 is there was.
Hey, old man. Give me everything.
This is so good.
Call an ambulance. ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me.
Pulls the gun on him and everything. Anyways, the other thing of note from game 1, there was only 2 penalties the whole game.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
And Hearst scored on their lone power play. That was in the 3rd period,
Yeah.
but it was weird. I was kind of split on how I felt about it because I was like, okay, it's playoff hockey. There's going to be less calls, but I was like, there's some stuff that definitely should have been like both
ways.
sides.
Yeah.
It was just like, I feel like that's pretty blatant and you're setting a certain tone. Luckily, things didn't get out of hand because things tend to in the playoffs when things are, let go like that. But luckily, it stayed fairly civil.
Yeah.
So,
well, it was funny watching it because I only got to watch periods 2 and 3 because I took overtime that night, so I didn't get off till 8. Then scampered over to Chris's as quickly as I could. But the thing that was wild about that is every time that like Hearst, did something blatant and they didn't call it, I was like, okay, whatever. But then every time that Powassan did, I was like, okay, now they're finally going to make that call.
Yep.
Because that's how that works. They're fine, and then they wouldn't. And then Case took the penalty for holding, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's a penalty, but it's like you've been letting that go all game. And same with the cross-checking to Shillinglaw in the second. I'm like, you've been up to that point, you've been letting that, and then you let it go after that too. It's like I don't know what's going on. It was a little bit of confusion. We'll move quickly into game 2 here because we do have a lot of OHL stuff to talk about, which isn't something we do too much on this podcast anymore, but we will talk OHL. Again, Hearst coming away with the 6-5 victory. The Voodoos almost pulled it out at the end, though. They almost got back into the game. Starting things off, Matthew Como kicked off the game with his first, and then Wraith Smith on the power play in the dying seconds of the period. Man, what a playoff he's having so far. Definitely big game player. You got that vibe in the regular season, too. That Wraith is a bit of a big game player. Should be an article coming out sometime this week on him, written by some weird guy for Beta Day at some point. Me. In the second, Adam Shillinglaw with his first tying things, or giving Hearst the go-ahead. Then Tucker Shields comes in, and he ties things up. Then Jean-Pierre Audris, again, just flip-flopping here. Then Ryan Patrick and Cooper Moore rounding out the goal scoring in the second. In the third, Matt Gorzalink gets them up. And then Don Haven, the best name in hockey, Don Haven, Vayu putting them up again. And then it was a 3-goal deficit for the Voodoos. And then Wraith Smith brought them back to within 2. Matthew McMillan brought them back to within 1. And that was all she wrote. Unfortunately, it just came up too short for the Voodoos. And also of note, Ryan Patrick and Adam Shillinglaw got into a fight as well.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. The whistle was dead, and then they were just going at it. I was like, okay, we're 2 games in. Things are this heated already. And
a lot more penalties, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is a significantly longer list to go through. Almost as many as the goals.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this was an exciting game. It started off, I was kind of like, okay, cool. We're going back and forth the entire game. And then the third 2 goals, and I was like, I don't know, guys. And actually, I had to step away from my computer at one point, and I came back, and I was looking at the group chat, and I was like, oh, my gosh, it's so close. And just couldn't quite close it out.
No, it was a little bit too little too late at the end of that game. The funny thing is when they went up 2 goals in the third, I turned to Topanga, who was with me at the time. I said, that's the game.
Yeah.
That's because it was like 1-2, or it was like 1-1, 1-1, like a whole game, right? And then it was whoever was going to either hold them off or score 2 goals in a row was going to win.
Yep.
And good news for the Voodoos going into game 3. They scored the last 2 goals of that game. So game 3 going Tuesday night in P-Town, although as we know, this podcast will be coming out well after games 3 and 4, but looking thanks. I appreciate you, Ben. You're the best producer in the world. Uh-oh, he's typing away. That's when it gets scary, is when you see the keyboard and everything going down there.
Of note, the Voodoos. Of note, the Voodoos getting 3 power play goals.
Yeah.
In this,
you don't see that very often.
No, their special teams have been kind of spotty. Killed better than their power play, but it's good to see. They're actually converting when it matters, and when I say they, I mean Wraith Smith twice and Ryan Patrick on the 1, assisted by Shields and McElhenney. So
yeah, Yeah, Tucker Shield having a good game as well. And then, of course, McElhaney. McElhaney's come to play here this playoffs, it feels like. Also, you kind of expect that, though, from your 20-year-olds when they know that this is the end regardless of their junior career. They tend to ramp it up here in the playoffs. But Wraith Smith, who, he's going to have bigger and I don't want to say bigger and better, but bigger and better hockey to play eventually in his career. He's really turned it on here in the playoffs, too. I mean, he was the goal-scoring leader for the Voodoos in the regular season, but 3 goals already in 2 games. Very impressive for the you got to remember, he's 16 years old.
Yeah, looks very comfortable out there in time of year that is especially dominated by 20-year-olds. Does not look out of place.
No, he doesn't. Speaking of time of year, though, we will be talking about OHL playoffs. We might have a bit of more things in store for you as well. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back talking about the Eastern Conference of the OHL on the other side of this.
Average Joe's Eatery and Patio Bar is North Bay's only year-round lakefront restaurant. On the shores of beautiful Trout Lake, we have been serving delicious food and stunning views since 1999. Indulge in one of our delicious menu items, or simply sit with a cocktail in hand and watch the beauty of Trout Lake before your eyes. Check us out online at averagejoes.net or visit us in person at 3501 Trout Lake Road, North Bay.
Hey there, I'm Mike the Financial Advisor. When you strip it down to its core and you take away all the industry jargon, I help people solve financial concerns. So if you're concerned that you'll never save enough to retire comfortably, or that your kid is going to graduate post-secondary $40,000 in debt, or maybe even that life is going to take a really unfortunate sideways turn and somebody is going to have to open a GoFundMe page for you and your family, I can help you prevent all of those things from happening. If you want to see how, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Just do a search for Mike the Financial Advisor. You should find me.
You rely on your vehicle to take you to the places that matter most to you. So bring your vehicle to the team you can rely on to keep it running at its best. Dave's Automotive Services. Whether you're getting your car or truck ready for the season with a tire change, making sure you're safe on the road with an inspection and certification, or doing your due diligence to keep your vehicle in tip-top shape with regular maintenance, Dave's Automotive Services has you covered. Expert troubleshooting, quality repairs, and time-efficient labor are the 3 stars of service you can expect when you bring your car or truck to Dave's Automotive Services at 411 Airport Road. Call 705-478-5544 and book your appointment today.
And we welcome you back to our Eastern Conference talk on the OHL. Kortney Kenny, pleased to be joined by Ryot Raps.
I hate it here.
In studio once again.
I hate it here.
Listen here, you know
Oh my god. Oh my god. Why this song of all songs? Oh my god. None of them. None of them. Oh my god. All right.
So how are you feeling after not like, I know you were a little sick, but how are you feeling after last week's episode of the podcast?
Even more so than when I was sick. I feel like throwing up, Kortney.
Even now?
I specifically asked right before you were like, oh, let me send you this. I was like, okay, cool. Should I be worried about this? Nah, you're fine. You're fine. Immediately, it was just like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, no, not this one. Not this one. No, please.
He was right on that. He was right on that.
No.
My favorite part, Harrison, you got to know right now, I'd never tell the truth. No, I'm just kidding. I'm okay. In all jokes aside, we do it because it's funny because of your reaction.
I know.
In all seriousness, I really enjoy your rap. It's really good.
You. Yeah, a lot of the stuff. You must have gone on my SoundCloud for that.
No, I just sent them to YouTube. You couldn't find your YouTube.
Oh, right. I forgot that it was on YouTube. I haven't touched the music stuff in all reality in 2 years. I performed last summer and all that because some friends asked me to. But I haven't actually worked on that stuff in a couple of years. I'd like to get back into it, but it's almost like I'm spending every single minute of my life working on something else.
Yeah, it's almost like you're doing Frontline stuff all the time.
Yeah.
If anyone wants the true MVP of the Frontline, hey, there it is. That's got to be on the YouTube video.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
July 22nd, 2022.
Yeah, it's been years.
It's only 2024.
Yeah. Oh, shout out the Fraser. Oh, no, not the live version. No. Oh, this was actually not bad. I don't mind this song.
All right. Before we get into our actual OHL chat, Ryot.
Oh, God.
Give us the background on what got you started with rap and why did you choose Ryot?
I don't think. Okay.
The condensed version.
I got dumped.
Oh, okay.
and I
that's what-
needed to do something.
So you needed a creative output.
Yeah, so I downloaded Fruity Loops and just learned how to make beats. And like I'd been writing just poetry and stuff since I was in grade 2.
Yeah.
And just kind of worked on that to keep my energy focused on something. And did that for a couple of years.
So self-therapy.
Kinda.
Yeah, that's
And
respectable.
my friends were just like, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is fun." So I just kind of kept doing that, and I don't know. I met some people in the community from. Well, I was helping a friend of mine cover an Amelia Rising event, and they happened to have a bunch of local artists there, and I was taking photos for that. So I got a couple of their contact information to send them the photos, and just became friends with a couple of them over time. 6 Sense, K-Ruck. There's a guy, Kieran Peltier, goes by Unseated. They're terrific guys. 6 Sense in particular, he does a lot in the local music community, and he's part of the guerrilla grooves things occasionally as well, and works with artists like Medusa and Samantha and all those guys. So there's a lot of awesome local artists that I've met through that. I just kind of started doing Frontline stuff, and it's kind of been my main focus away from that. So it's not that I stopped doing it, it's just I focus my creative energy somewhere else.
So, I got 2 follow-up questions. First off, because one of them is something I'd already asked, but you didn't really. Why Ryot? Oh no,
It was my gamer tag.
Oh yeah, fair.
It was
Okay.
my gamer tag. And I was like, that works.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay, second follow-up to it is, as somebody who's like a big fan of like classic rock, obviously to me it was like, oh man, if I'm gonna, like, I played the drums and I was like, Kiss and everything, and I was like, that's what I want to do, and I want to play drums to Kiss music, and stuff. And then I knew already some producer guy at the end of the table that was playing guitar. Why'd you hit the record scratch? Hey, I got a good joke for you. I got a good joke for both of you. It's a very bad dad joke, but hey, you're a rapper, so this kind of fits for you. Hey, what do DJs call their sons or their son?
I have no clue.
Eric.
That was a very dad joke. Twofold.
I told Chris that yesterday, and he's like, Chris has a list of dad jokes in his phone. He put it in the list.
He has a list.
I made it.
He has
I
a
made it to the
document.
list.
That's good. See, getting a negative reaction from a dad joke is the ideal reaction,
that's
though.
exactly
Same with
it.
like a cheesy pun.
Yeah. Oh, I'm here. That's what my calendar's for.
That's it.
But anyways, so to me, it was like, I grew up in a classic rock household, and classic rock was the way to go. And then, branched into metal and stuff because of some guy at the end of the table who was like, oh, let's play Enter Sandman. And I was like, that's a stupid song, but okay. No, I'm just kidding. So what, for you, why were you like, rap's the way I want to go?
Because I can't play any instruments.
No, eh?
And I was like, well, I'm pretty good with computers, so I'm sure I can learn to produce digitally, and I can write poetry pretty well, so I'm sure I can translate that. And like, if you go back on YouTube and stuff, like a lot of my earlier stuff is not very good and mixed super poorly and all that, but more recent stuff is an acceptable level. So it was more so I don't know how to play any instruments, and the only one I do know how to play is the trumpet, and that doesn't translate very well to just doing a solo act if you're not very good. So it was kind of that, where it's just like, okay, I can learn how to produce, I can do this, and I can write, so maybe I can put those things together. And luckily, right after that, a little thing called COVID happened, which gave me a lot of time to work on that.
I was just kind of curious because, like, I'm it's not to go on a limb and say that rap is one of your favorite genres of music. Mm-hmm. But I was always just kind of curious because usually when someone's like, oh, rap is the greatest thing ever, they usually are like, oh, like, they're not necessarily in my car bobbing along to Kansas or something, right? But you seem to know almost every song on my playlist whenever it comes up because it's classic rock, right? So,
well, so my musical background is my dad was very much like Queen, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Kiss, stuff like that. But my stepdad used to be a DJ, and he's probably one of like the greatest wealths of musical knowledge that like I've ever met. when I was younger and I'd go for weeks at a time to visit my mom and him in the summer, we did this thing called the ABCs of music, and each day we'd go through a different letter of the alphabet and he'd introduce a different band through that. So that's how I learned about Smashing Pumpkins, Echo and the Bunnymen, Depeche Mode, just like all different types of music that you just kind of have a taster of that day. And I learned a lot through that. That's how I heard my first rap, Beastie Boys. And I was just like, I fell in love immediately with that. And I didn't really get exposed to different types of rap after that because, well, I grew up in a fairly Christian household and stuff like that. So that kind of put the kibosh on that. But once I had the internet, it was just like, oh, wow, there's so many different aspects of this that I can kind of delve into. And there's so many different types. And going into the history of it, I was like, wow, this is fascinating.
I'm always kind of interested to learn how people figure out their music because mine, if I had just gone off of specifically my parents, I would be Rolling Stones and like Led Zeppelin and Kiss, and that would be like my horizon would be just those three basically. Or even to an extent some country music on my dad's side a little bit. But it was really through like Ben down at the end of the table introducing me to Metallica when I introduced him to Kiss, or like Jess Rovita, who does our intro, introducing me to, more Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins in the 90s, grunge movement in general, and 90s alternative, and my buddy Travis Wager, who's just like, here's all this stuff that's like 90s alternative and the White Stripes and Jack White and all that related stuff. Or some friends down in Powassan, Pat Houghton and his brother, who were like big into Rush, that really got me into Rush, stuff like that. So it's always kind of neat to learn that from someone else's perspective, how they broaden their music horizon. And it's obviously, you are what you live, and then you do your own research and all that stuff, and you start to realize, oh, all these songs I heard on the radio are by 5 different artists kind of thing. And that's pretty impressive too, on the other hand, right? And then you learn other stuff. So, it's just kind of neat. Yeah. So thanks for sharing.
No problem. And just to close it out, and a lot of the rap stuff, like my friends were huge in college. Yeah. They were a mix of like, here's this sort of like grungier side, here's this more technical side, here's this more abstract side. Just like all of them had a different background in what they enjoyed about rap, and kind of exposed me through that. So it was just like, cool, I can kind of pick and choose what parts of that I like and implement that. So
no, it works out. Like that's how I am with like playing the drums. Not that I'm anything great, but like every drummer aspires to be Neil Peart. But every drummer doesn't necessarily want to be Ringo Starr, and he's just as important, kind of thing.
Exactly.
And you want to take bits and pieces. Like people hate Lars Ulrich from Metallica, but you got to take bits from what he does and put it into what you do. And it all comes down to what you listen to, and you become a Frankenstein of what you listen to. So, which is what I kind of appreciate about going and seeing local shows, because these are guys that people are never going to see on the big stage, but at least you can be like, I can appreciate because I can hear the influences in this person's music.
Yep.
But the other thing I was also going to say is Rock Band and Guitar Hero were really big influences on me too, because it was like, oh, here's Blue Oyster Cult for you, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. But anyway, it's completely off topic. So the OHL wrapped up its regular season.
It did,
and I know you guys had this on the AAR, but nobody knew until really yesterday who they were playing. Harrison,
wild. Before I came to do the show, when the OHL put out the tweet, for the first time ever, no first round matchups have been decided before the final day, and it's like, really, ever? That's wild.
Yeah,
it really came down to the wire. There's a couple of spots that were figured out, like where the seating was going to be, but the matchups were just out there.
Yeah, like North Bay knew that they had home ice advantage. They knew that they were going to be playing, either Kingston or Barrie, but that's where it was.
Yep.
You didn't know if you're booking hotels in Kingston. You didn't know if you're booking hotels in Barrie. Unfortunately, travel-wise, they're going to be booking hotels in Kingston because that's a heck of a road trip, but that's besides the point. I actually, yesterday during the post-game scrum for Bay today, talking to Ryan Olahan, as soon as the microphone kind of stopped rolling, I brought that up to him, and he was just flabbergasted too. He's like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Like,
who knew?
Yeah, like
I think it was one of the American teams wasn't sure whether they'd be going all the way up to the sewer or not.
Yeah.
It's just like, imagine having that on your mind. Just like, I'm either going to be just in a bus for like 9 hours or like 25 minutes maybe.
Well, and that's the thing. Like some of these matchups are pretty close geographically, and some of them are pretty far. Like North Bay and Kingston. Not the closest. I mean, if you could drive like diagonally straight down,
Yeah,
you'd be fine. You'd be there in like 2.5, 3 hours. But you got to go around Algonquin Park one way or the other.
Yeah, you got to go like all through Quinte or take around Ottawa.
Yeah.
It's like, that's no fun.
And when I went down there, not this summer, but the summer before, we went down to Prince Edward County, and then we went to Kingston for a couple of days because Topanga went to Queens, so she wanted to go back and all that stuff. We went through the back roads, which is really beautiful country, but there's no passing lanes. It's all 2-lane highways through like Halliburton and all that jazz. And then we came down in Belleville and drove out to the island. But it's like, yeah, there's no straight way.
No.
And after we did that trip, we were going to go back to Sudbury after we left Kingston because she was living there still at the time, the Nickel Nerds. But anyways, I said to her, I am not going back up through that way. We're taking the 401 to the 400 up to Sudbury.
Yep.
Like, sorry, it might add another hour, but I'm not sitting behind a transport truck for 2 hours on one lane.
Yeah, pick your poison. But
yeah, it's brutal. But anyways, if we can have the playoff brackets here, we'll bring it up. The first series that we'll talk about is the one that North Bay didn't know about. Thanks, Sudbury, by the way, for really helping us. The North Bay Battalion, always the bridesmaid, never the bride when it comes to winning the Eastern Conference, Harrison?
Yeah, it once again came down to the wire, but I can't say I'm disappointed.
No.
Because Barry's played North Bay really hard all year. They always play North Bay really tough.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad to see them not get Barry.
Yeah, so it is Oshawa who gets Barry in the first round. And that should be a good series, actually,
Yeah.
I think. Oshawa's really come on strong. And I said this last year, and it really bit me in the ass come the Eastern Conference Finals. There's no team in the East that really scares me because look at the parity in the East, first off. But every team has beaten everybody at least once.
That's true.
And Barry, I think, could really give Oshawa a run for their money. I think Oshawa comes out on top regardless, but I think it could be a longer series, which is not something you usually see between a 1v versus 8. That series kicks off Friday in Oshawa. Game 2 goes Sunday, Easter Sunday. So Good Friday, they're going to be eating their fish. Easter Sunday, they're going to be celebrating here with in Oshawa again. Tuesday will be Game 3 in Barrie. Thursday, April 4th will be Game 4 in Barrie. Game 5 should it be necessary, will go Friday, April 5th, and Sunday, April 7th will again be Barrie Game 6, and Tuesday, April 9th will be Barrie versus Oshawa. Game 7, if it goes that far. We'll get to our official predictions here in a moment. I don't think it's going to be going 7.
No.
But I think it'll get close.
Yeah. It's hard to tell with Barrie, especially the team they have this year, that despite losing a ton of key pieces, they still find themselves in that final playoff spot. They're still a very skilled team. They have guys like Jelsma who can just turn on the heat and just take a game into their hands. So, and especially Barrie's play style is physical, get under your skin, force you to make mistakes, and they're very good at it, as we saw against North Bay all season. So it's impossible to count them out, but I don't think they win this one.
No. Cole Beaudoin as well.
Yeah, Cole
also,
Beaudoin.
especially recently, he's been hot. But on the other side, Oshawa's got guys like Callum Ritchie, back at Seneca, Connor Punnett from Powassan, former Voodoos AP as well, who I really like. I know at the time, producer Ben and I on the podcast were giving up our wish list of what we wanted in the trade deadline, and Connor Punnett was on both of our lists, and unfortunately he went to Oshawa, and also we wanted Donovan McCoy, and well, his bit of an interesting situation happened there with that team that we'll get to, the team that got him. But Harrison, your official prediction on Oshawa versus Barrie?
Jensen 6.
I was going to say Jensen 6 too.
Yeah, that seems fair. Barrie can make it interesting. I don't know if they make it 7. I'm not saying that's out of the possibility, but I think the more likely scenario is Jensen 6.
I think if we're going to talk about our concrete option being Game 6 for sure for the Gens, I think if we're going to talk about what's more likely, Gens in 5 or Gens in 7? I'm saying Gens in 5 is more likely than 7.
Gens in 5 is more likely than 7. Yeah. I would agree with that.
So that's where we stand with that one. Series number 2, we're going to spend a little bit extra time on here because we kind of know one of the teams.
Yeah, just a bit.
You know, you talk about them on the podcast every once in a while, have a show about their home games. It's the North Bay Battalion, who are 3-time Central Division, or 3 times in a row, 3-peat Central Division champions. Although, again, I'll go back to a moment earlier in the season with producer Ben where he says to me, do you want the Central Division or do you want the OHL Championship? Central Division is nice. You have to get over the hump in year 3. We have to get there. I brought that up to head coach Ryan Houlihan yesterday, and he said, on one hand, he's like, the banners are nice, and in 15 years, they don't take them down. Banners fly forever, right? Like, that's the thing. So these guys can at least always look back at their OHL career and be like, wow, we won. Ty Nelson's 3 years in North Bay ended with 3 divisional banners. Like, that's still impressive.
Certainly. Especially in the short time frame that these guys have in the O.
Yeah.
Being able to 3 in a row, that means that you were effective all of those years.
Effective?
To an extent.
Yeah, but that... The first year was kind of like, oh, we're playing with house money, and they lost in 4 to Hamilton. Hamilton was ridiculous that year. There was no way that anyone was getting past Hamilton. I mean, they went on to win the OHL championship. Last year, no offense to Peterborough, who went on to win the OHL championship, that was North Bay's series to lose.
Yep.
And they lost it. Whoever won that series is going to beat London.
Yep, they were.
Peterborough was very much a team of destiny, where they literally just put it all together in the playoffs. And maybe that happens again this year, and we see a team that puts it all together in the playoffs too. But I like the series for North Bay. I think they have to, at the bare minimum, win the Eastern Conference Championship this year.
Yeah, that has to be the goal. Like, obviously, you're in the playoffs. You want to be, okay, winner. You got to win. But the Eastern Conference has really eluded them.
Yeah.
And they just haven't been able to put it together when it matters most. Last year, I think a big factor in that was the Barrie series, where it was just so physical, exhausting, and just an absolute endurance test. And the fact that they even won that Game 7 just came down to third period heroics.
Yeah.
So the fact that, again, it went to a Game 7 against Peterborough, and going into that after a really rough Game 6 loss and playing so soon after, it was a game of inches.
That's exactly it. Game 6 was a game of inches too. The Battalion had the lead with like 9 minutes left.
Yeah.
I don't need to relive that night.
Me neither. That was a long drive.
Yeah, it was. Long drive there, long drive back. But yeah, so the Battalion this time will be taking on Kingston, speaking of long drives like we mentioned. That kicks off Thursday here at home in North Bay. Saturday will be game 2. Monday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, will be down in Kingston. That should be an interesting one for game 3. Game 4 will be also be in Kingston on Wednesday, April 3rd. Game 5, if necessary, will be Friday, April 5th in North Bay. Game 6, if necessary, will be in Kingston on April 7th and April 9th if the series goes 7. Game 7 will be Tuesday, April 9th. I don't think this one goes 7. Actually, I think this one wraps up quicker than the Generals series, to be honest with you. So we'll see how that one goes, and we'll get to that in a moment as well. You talked about Game 7 against Barrie last year. I just wanted to highlight the 2 guys that scored goals in Game 3. No longer with the team, Kyle McDonald, Kyle Jackson.
Yep.
So yeah, third period heroics. That being said, if they're down a goal in a Game 7, Wakely, Romani, and Van Steensel are not leaving the ice.
No. And the only guy that might swap in for them is Mr. Vilmanis.
Yeah.
And maybe Andrew LeBlanc, depending on how his playoffs seem to be going.
Well, he's injured right now, too.
He is? Okay.
Yeah. He sat out last game. His arm was in a sling, so.
That's true. Okay, so we'll have to see how that goes. Ertl's going to be a factor.
Yeah.
I chose him as player to watch going into this series because playoff suits the exact type of player that he is when he's at his best, and him being able to make space, create lots of positive offensive opportunities is going to be key. But yeah, if you're in a do or die situation, top line, running them the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, Romani sneaked up on 60. He finished with 58. He also finished, I think you were saying, 2 points below Justin Brazo in points overall.
111.
But 58 goals, ridiculous. He joins Michael Amadio and Brazo as the only other 50 goal scorers. Wakely, it really kills me to say, finished with 39.
So close.
Disappointing year. Terrible. Get rid of him. Over 100 points, though. So Romani and Wakely both getting over 100 points this year. The team itself in North Bay has only had 2 100-point players coming into this year, and that was Brandon Coe and Justin Brazo. So to do it all in the same year is very impressive. Some guy named Owen Van Steensel finishing with 40 goals or 40-plus goals on the year.
Yep.
And then you also had Vilmanis, who got to 38, including 28 in Battalion Green, which is ridiculous.
Almost a goal a game since he got here.
Yeah. And then, excuse me, Ertl with 25. Terrian got to 20. That's not bad when that's coming off your third line.
Yep.
Although we last year were saying that about Wakely scoring 30 on the third line. So, and then we got, Procession, who's put in some points. Nelson finishes potentially his last OHL season just under a point a game as well. Dom DiVincentis, though, we really need to highlight him here, Harrison, because he wasn't Dom DiVincentis through the first half of the season.
No, he had a bit of a slow start. Him getting injured and coming back probably too early did not help. And the defense in front of him at the time was not optimal. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But after, I can't say, I don't know the guy, but it could be implied after not making the World Juniors team, coming off of that Christmas break, he just has been on a tear ever since.
Yeah.
He's looked very, very good, had very few off moments, let alone games. So him being in form is what you need, and you can tell that the Battalion are putting their trust in him because they've basically just been outright playing Dom, making sure that he stays ready. And no offense to McIver, but he hasn't had that sort of pressure put on him. This is his first year in the OHL, and going into the tough playoff run that they're going to have, yet you got to be able to rely on Mike, but you have to rely on Dom first and foremost and make sure that he's in peak form if you're going to make this run.
Yeah, Dom is by no means any less of the guy than he was last year. Again, Mike does have playoff experience. He has championship experience as well. However, AAA hockey is very different than OHL hockey.
Exactly.
This is, of your age group, the best of the best. This is the NHL for your age group.
Yeah.
Essentially. So it should be interesting. And you know what? Again, Mike held his own in the regular season. Do you want to see him start all games in the playoff series? Maybe not. You want to see Dom this year for sure. But then again, there was people around here that were saying that about Dom in his first year too, where they wanted Joe to start the whole entire time, and then Dom came out of against Kingston in the second round and stole that series for them. So
yeah, I think part of the difference is we've only seen a bit of Mike, especially because they were rolling 3 for so long. So it's hard to tell where he's really at. He's looked good in the appearances he has had, but for a consistent stretch to see what he actually plays like when the pressure's on, especially, it's still untested.
I forgot to bring this up. Producer Ben, can you go back to the standing screen real quick, please? So going back to Oshawa, they finished with 89 points. The team that they're taking on, Barrie, has 60. Oshawa finished with 40 wins. Barrie finishes with 28. North Bay finishing with 39 wins. They have 87 points. Kingston has 70. And now, Harrison, now comes the time for the official prediction.
The official prediction? Troops in 5.
Yeah, Troops in 5. I'm going to lock that one in.
Yep.
I think that one's pretty secure. I wouldn't be shocked if there happened to be a sweep, but I'm going to give Kingston the benefit of the doubt and give them at least a win.
Kingston's shown that they can put it together, and depending on the game that Vakari's having, he can just shut people down.
Yeah.
He's very good when he's on.
Paul Ludwinski's also pretty good too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, their goaltending is nothing to, shake a stick at.
Yeah.
But okay. And just before we get away from it, we kind of said it all season. The Battalion are a very 500 team. They ended with exactly 39 wins and 39 losses, and 29 losses. So they're pretty much as 500 as you can get.
If you bring back up the
There were 640.
standings, it's still pretty, yeah. The Battalion finishing also second in the Eastern Conference with 300 goals on the button to Sudbury's 328. In the West, Sudbury actually led the league with 328 goals. London had 322, then Saginaw with 303, and North Bay with 300. Absolutely ridiculous numbers from the offense. Defense, though, allowing a little bit more than you'd like to see, and that's 240 goals against as well. In the past 10, they come into the playoffs riding an 8-1-1 record, and for whatever reason, the power play suffered a little bit this year, 22.8, and that's because I would say Ty Nelson's one-timer hasn't been automatic as it was last year. But also, you would think with the offensive line that they have, it has been better since Phil Manis has come to play on that top line. But you would think, running out Wakely and Romani and Nelson would lead to many goals, but it hasn't.
Yeah, and I think that's a twofold factor where Nelson's been forced to play a bit more defensively this year because of the struggles that they had at the beginning, and also, teams have seen him more. They know how to shut him down more. They know how to play around a player like that a bit more effectively. So while we say he hasn't been as effective, he's still put up very good numbers. But yeah, their power play definitely wasn't as much of a 1-2 punch as it was last year.
Both teams also finishing with 819 penalties a minute. That's wild.
That adds up.
North Bay's penalty kill 82.3 to Kingston's 79.5, although Kingston has a slight edge on the power play at 21.3%. Speaking of power plays for other teams, Oshawa 21.5 and their penalty kill 83.2. Barry's power play 16.3%, not great, and their penalty kill 66.2%.
That's an atrocious penalty kill,
Isn't it?
especially for a playoff team.
Peterborough had 77.2% on the penalty kill. Niagara 79.9 or 75.9, sorry.
You had a worse penalty kill
Yes.
than the Niagara Ice Dogs by almost 10 points.
Yep.
That is horrendous. That is nigh unacceptable.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's Barry also scuffling going into the playoffs, going 2-7 or 1-8-0-1. Whereas Oshawa went 10-0 over their last 10. North Bay also going 8-1-1 to Kingston's 5-3-2 in the last 10. Now we'll move on to the next series. This one's where the things start to get a little bit tighter point-wise. It's the Brantford Bulldogs, who were in first place in the OHL or in the Eastern Conference for a long time this season, faltered a bit down the stretch, but that also proves how quickly a team could go from first to sixth in the East this year. Brantford falling to third, and they'll take on the Ottawa 67s, who finished in sixth. Game 1 will go in Brantford on Friday. Game 2 will go Brantford again on Sunday. Next week, we'll see on the 2nd in Brantford, Game 3, or in Ottawa, sorry, Game 3. Ottawa will host Game 4 on the 4th, and then Brantford, Game 5 on the 6th, if necessary. Game 6 will go in Ottawa on the 7th, and Game 7, if necessary, will go on the 9th in Brantford. Back to the standings real quick, if you don't mind. This is how tight this series could potentially be. Brantford finished with 85 points. Ottawa finished with 80.
Wow. It doesn't feel like it was that close when you watch those games. Brantford always feels like a dominant team no matter what situation you find them in. And Ottawa had a bit of a rough stretch around the trade deadline mark. So it was...
Yeah, Ottawa was in the top as well.
Yeah, they were up there, and then they went on a 9-game losing skid.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was right before the trade deadline, so there was a lot of questions about what they were going to do, and I think they only made a couple of moves, but I think that's also due to them already having a fairly strong team, not losing a ton of their key pieces from last year, and just overall being fairly strong. So seeing this matchup, it's close. It's two very different styles of play.
Yeah. I can't discount Luca Pinelli.
No.
He has over 40 goals for Ottawa. Brantford, I'm kind of not really... There's no one that really stood out for me for Brantford. It was kind of a score by committee team.
Yeah.
Felt like just that's how it felt when they were here too. Looking at the power play, Brantford 19.1, penalty kill 79.2. Ottawa 21.3 on the power play, 76.6 going into that. They also went 5-4-1 over their last 10. And guess what? Brantford went 5-4-1 over their past 10 as well. So this is a series, though, that's going to have a lot of eyes on it just because of how tight it could potentially be. I don't really have much more to add to it, Harrison. If you do have anything.
I think it's going to be one of the most interesting series to watch in the East. I'm going to be watching the Battalion one, obviously. But I don't even think from just a general perspective, it's the most interesting one. I think the two most interesting ones to watch are going to be this series because of the different styles of play. You have Brantford, who's very physical, who's very, quick on the breakout, able to make a lot of space. And then you have kind of quick and slick Ottawa. So offensively, it's going to be really spectacular. And I think Brantford in 7.
Ottawa only finished one win behind Brantford in the standings, 37-36.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Ottawa in 6.
Ottawa in 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because Ottawa's going to be ticked about how they went out last year.
Oh, yeah.
And they were basically just like championed as just incredible, especially throughout the regular season. It was like Ottawa's just on another tier last year, and then the way things fell apart, it was kind of Boston-y from last year, if you look at it that way.
At least they made it past around. The Boston didn't even make it past that.
That's true, but they have a lot to prove this year, and they have the capability of doing so. But I think Brantford just has a bit more edge to them when it comes down to it.
I can see this going both ways, but I'm gonna give the edge to Ottawa in 6 just to be different. I remember in like middle school, it was Calgary and Anaheim in the first. We are all to like pick who was gonna win each playoff round, and I picked Anaheim over Calgary, and I was the only one that picked Anaheim over Calgary, and Anaheim beat Calgary, so I feel like So I'm gonna go with Ottawa on this one. That being said, I would not be shocked if Brantford won. There's gonna be a longer series for sure. I just think that the 67s have the tools to turn it on if they want to, or if they can get things going. Plus, fans in Ottawa want to see a winner. No offense to the Sens. Hey, the women's team's not doing too bad though. So that's some exciting hockey going on in the nation's capital. But at least the 67s play in the nation's capital. Senators. No, Ottawa shouldn't be taking strays from me. But when we talked about it before, but when you in a perpetual rebuild and it finally feels like the rebuild's done, you still can't make the playoffs. There's something wrong.
Yeah, they're kind of in free fall.
Yeah. So that being said, I'm gonna go 67. So that leaves us with one more series in the East, and that's between the Mississauga Steelheads and the Sudbury Wolves. Sudbury, who went all in at the trade deadline, getting a guy like Donovan McCoy, falling to 5th in the conference. There was a point where it looked like it could be a North Bay Sudbury series.
Yep.
And that would have been wild.
Yeah. We haven't really seen that.
No. I want to see that. But they'll be traveling to Mississauga instead. They could potentially close the door on Mississauga's time in the OHL, the Sudbury Wolves, if they wanted to in this series.
That's true.
It would be a little poetic because Sudbury ended Brampton's run.
That's true.
As the Battalion, and this could end Mississauga's run before they move to Brampton.
That would be a neat little bookend. Mm-hmm. This is, I think, the most exciting matchup in the East.
Oh yeah, I'm watching this.
Yeah, one of my favorite teams to watch this year is Mississauga, and especially after that playoff series last year, I was like, there's a lot of exciting pieces here. Ryerson Leanders is probably one of my top 3 favorite goalies to watch.
I drafted him in my rebuild of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Oh, yeah?
He's not going to crack the team anytime soon, but he's there.
Yeah, he's so dynamic. He can shut down a game all on his own. You got just so many offensive weapons that you can rely on. They play a really good balance of physical, but not relying on it too much. They have that high skill ceiling, and they're able to open up lanes and be very effective on their power play. Their puck movement is just beautiful to watch. So I really like Mississauga in this one, and Sudbury can just blow the heck out of you. They can throw a guy like Dvorsky in, and he can just put up 3 like it's nothing. So, or Goyette, who had a heck of a run to close out the season. Musty as
hit
well.
100 points as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be a barn burner for sure.
Game 1 goes from the Paramount Fine Food Center. Say that one 5 times fast.
Paramount 5 Foods. Nope.
No, it didn't work.
I can't. Nope.
Really nice arena. Really cold in that arena, though. That goes Thursday, same night the Battalion opened up their series, and then Game 2 goes the same night as the Battalion on Saturday. Game 3 will go from the Nickel Nerds Nickel City in the great town of Sudbury on Monday, April 1st. And then Game 4 will go Wednesday, April 3rd in Sudbury. If necessary, Game 5 will be on Friday, April 5th. Game 6 will go from Sudbury April 8th, and Game 7 will go April 9th. If we're going to look at the standings again real quick, just to give you a sense of where these two teams finished, usually the 5-4 series is always the most interesting one because they're who finished closest in the standings. Mississauga finished with 84 points. Sudbury finished with 83. Both of them had 38 wins on the season. 21.3% on the power play for the Steelheads, 81.3 on the penalty kill. Sudbury, a ridiculous 25.2 on the power play. Not so great, 78.3 on the penalty kill. They limped into the playoffs at 4-5-1 over the past 10. Mississauga with 8-1-1 as they tried to keep pace with the Battalion, ultimately falling just behind. All right, if we're going to break this one down a little bit, goaltending, edge to Mississauga all day, every day.
Yep.
Defense, I'm going to give the edge to the Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Offense, I like, Misa. I like Porter Martone. I cannot argue with David Goyette. I cannot, and you got to think, if we're talking about chips on shoulders after not going to World Juniors, he's had a heck of a chip on his shoulder, and he's absolutely gone off in the second half. Quentin Musty, showing why he was drafted first overall a couple of years ago. Dalibor Dvorsky, absolutely ridiculous. So I got to give the edge in offense and defense to the Wolves. Offense, a big time edge. Defense, a slight edge. Goaltending, a big time edge to the Steelheads.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so back and forth each night. Like, you could have that top line go crazy for Sudbury, but as we saw in this last game against the Generals, where you really want to win that one, they just can't get anything going.
No.
So, and that seems to be the story of the Wolves over the past couple of games where they were on again, off again, on again, off again. So you don't want to see that going into the playoffs, but at the same time, that top line can just pop off and just decimate you.
Yeah. So I talk about how no team really scared me in the East coming into the playoffs. I would not want to get Sudbury in the first round at all.
No.
I mean, regardless of, they don't necessarily scare me, but in a series where you only need to win 4 out of 7, they can turn it on and they could win 4 in a row at any point in time. I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, though. Nathan Villeneuve and McCallum. Because we're going to be talking about Kitchener here in a moment. Trent Swick. First off, to the gentleman on Instagram who got into it with me, you're an idiot. But anyways, that's besides the point. I hope you're a nice man because you seem like a nice guy. But the way you went off for no reason about me, because I said, why does Swick have to sit out the playoffs, but these two guys who did something arguably worse get to play? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I would love to get I don't want to sit here because I there's people in the OHL that I've met that are great people and they've really helped us out. The Department of Player Safety with the OHL just doesn't make any sense on that one.
No, I don't understand how you decide upon a strict penalty, as there should be. That, yes, you understand that you do something in a game, you're probably going to have to watch your back the next game because you did something to deserve, getting some get back. That's just the way hockey is. But when you put a monetary value on it, you put it in writing, you make it as blatant a thing as it was, and you're like, okay, we want to shut this down, we're going to throw down the hammer, and then immediately backtrack on it. What sort of precedent does that send, I think, is the bigger concern. And then you have a similar, a lesser situation, and then it still has a harsher penalty in some extent. I don't understand that.
Well, one actually took place on the ice. The Swick one was an aggressor, which I get it. Heat of the moment, you lose your mind. He's going to be out till game 4 for Kitchener. And he's a good secondary scorer, just like Villeneuve and McCallum are for Sudbury. So with that being said about those two guys, them coming back to play the series, helps Sudbury immensely because they're bottom. If Goyette, Musty, and all those guys aren't going, you can throw Villeneuve out and he can try and get you a couple of goals. Like, he's a great player in his own right. Very disappointing what happened in the whole situation. You know, you should never be trying to put a player's life in jeopardy, you know, by wanting revenge like that. And I'm with you. I think it's ridiculous. I think it sets a bad precedent league-wide. I think it really shows that money talks in some situations where it's like, you know, the revenue from playoffs could really help us. We need these players. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm not saying that's how it goes.
Allegedly.
That's just where my mind goes on this thing. I just am very disappointed that the league walked that back and said, because at first it was like a week after the announcement of the suspensions that they walked it back. And it's like, why?
Yeah, there was no explanation to why that was allowed. They said, okay, they contested it. Here's the new result. Why?
Yeah.
Why was it found that this was an acceptable measure to be taken?
Well, the thing that's weird about it, okay, it'd be one thing if you say, okay, the sentences have been reduced to however many games are left in the regular season.
Yeah.
But no, it's they can come back and play in the playoffs, and then their suspensions are going to take place again next year.
Cool.
So you didn't reduce anything. You just allowed them to come back and play in the most important time of the year. That doesn't penalize the team. That doesn't penalize the players. You know, like, that's just, it changes the dynamic of the series for me.
Yeah, it doesn't make any logical sense from precedent that has been set or anything you're trying to make an example of moving forward. Because you've shown when push comes to shove, it doesn't matter.
No. Like, what's stopping you from going out there and being like, oh, I really want to take out this player, and it gets out there and then be like, well, these guys, you know, I really want to run this guy and take out his knees or something, and then, well, these guys got away with it.
Yeah. Why can't I?
Yeah.
Well, because of what? We don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing that's really annoying about it to me. And don't get me wrong, I said this on this podcast, I do have like a soft spot for the Wolves, which is sad to say as a battalion. Like, that's a big no-no. But this, I'm just like, I can't stand for it.
Yeah, it would be the same of any team. Yeah. It just happens to be the Wolves in this case. If it happened to London, if it happened to Oshawa, whatever.
Yeah.
It's the precedent that sucks. It's not the team.
All right, so going back to the teams on the ice, Harrison, it's that time. Our big predictions here. Who's walking out of this series alive? Pardon the pun.
Damn it, Kortney.
That literally crossed my mind as it came out, and I was like, you idiot.
Sudbury in 6.
Sudbury in 6. All right. I think goaltending wins you series.
Okay.
I think Mississauga has the goaltending to win the series. I think if that top line goes the way that it should go for Sudbury, it'll be Wolves in 7.
Wolves in 7? Okay. Yeah. This is probably the hardest one
to judge. Yeah, I hear it.
It's such a toss-up because, as you said, goaltending can win you a series.
Yeah.
But also, that top line can pop off and go crazy.
Yeah.
And that's not to discount Mississauga's offense.
No.
They can also pop off.
Well, look at Martone in the playoffs against the Battalion last year.
Yeah. I think the Battalion underestimated Mississauga last year, and they almost paid for it.
Oh, yeah.
In some aspects during some games, they most definitely did. And Mississauga's a stronger team than they were last year.
Yep.
So, yeah, Wolves in 6 for me, Wolves in 7 for you. But if Mississauga wins, I'm not surprised.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, like Mississauga could easily win the series in 5. Mississauga could also win the series in 6, and I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah.
Because Leenders or Ivan Kovic come in and steal you a couple of games. Misa, Martone, you know, those guys could come in and steal you a couple of games as well from an offensive standpoint. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy when you think about it, how tight the series is going to be. And yeah, okay, Mississauga finished with the slight edge, so they get the home ice advantage. The slight edge is so minimal here. We're talking about like the razor's edge at this point.
And I think discipline is going to be the biggest factor in this.
You don't say, eh?
Like, if the Wolves get too heated, that could cost them. If Mississauga has one instance where they lash out and get on even a double minor, that can set the game back to a point where it's just unreachable.
Well, we've seen Sudbury's power play up close and in person. It's been almost automatic when it's been here at the Gardens. Again, 25.2 doesn't blow your mind away, but it is a very good power play. However, Mississauga does hold the edge at 81.3 on the penalty kill, so that is an impressive penalty kill. Still, it's not the best penalty kill, but it's going to have its work cut out for them. And I'm sure right now as we're recording this, they're probably going over schemes to be like, how can we stop Goyette? How can we stop Musty? And how can we stop Dvorsky?
Yeah.
Right?
It's wild.
Yeah. And Donovan McCoy's on the point.
Yeah. By the way.
Yeah. However, like I said, where I think the Wolves falter and this really hurts their series, last thing I'll say is Jakub Vondras. He's a good goalie. He's just not Leenders or Ivan Kovic.
No, having that tandem that you can rely on in Mississauga is such a valuable thing to have in your back pocket.
You know what it reminds me of is the 03, and this is going way back, 03 Minnesota Wild, who had Dwayne Rollison and Manny Fernandez, who were both at the top of their game, and they played both those goalies in that playoff run.
Yeah.
Like, you could just go to either or. It's an embarrassment of riches is what it is for Mississauga.
Yeah.
And we used to say North Bay was the goalie factory because of obvious reasons, but give me that tandem any day of the week.
Yeah, and as soon as they started popping off the season, I was like, I got to keep an eye on these guys because this is pretty special.
Yeah, and it has been. So with that being said, Harrison, why don't we go to a quick commercial break here, and we'll come back and talk about the Western Conference.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be back with more OHL playoff preview on the other side of this.
Meals are a special time for families to gather, share their day, and spend quality time together. Those dinners are made extra special when you add tropical produce found in the markets and grocery stores that carry La Huerta imports. La Huerta knows the importance of family, so they know which quality products make the best quality meals for your customers, whether it be Mexican Hass avocados, Brazilian figs, Ecuadorian red dragon fruit, or something just as exotic and special. To get your supply of the best tropical produce at competitive prices with brands buyers trust, contact La Huerta Imports at 705-752-1478.
Barry! Huh? I told you not to be scaring the customers.
Hey, Barry! Come on in for a bite. And bring Brianna with you.
For only 2 minutes up the hill, where you're only a stranger once.
Ready to embark on an electrifying adventure? Look no further than the Mitsubishi Outlander, available in gas or PHEV, the SUV that redefines excellence. Recently awarded the best midsize utility vehicle in Canada for 2023 by AJAC. This bold and sophisticated SUV delivers advanced performance, safety, and tech, plus peace of mind, with its standard super all-wheel control and the best warranty in the business. With red-hot deals and plenty in stock, your award-winning drive starts with the Mitsubishi Outlander.
Why is Northern Honda servicing more cars of all makes and models? Let's count the ways. 1. Our state-of-the-art facility has award-winning technicians. 2. Northern Honda has the lowest tire price guarantee, no matter what you drive. 3. The lowest synthetic oil change guarantee, and every 5th oil change is free for all makes and models. Plus, new Honda buyers get brake pads for life. See the service difference at Northern Honda, 1250 Seymour beside Home Depot.
Community engagement is one of our core focuses at McDonald's. The key is finding the right people who are passionate about the same things we are, helping kids be kids. McDonald's proudly supports local organizations such as the North Bay Regional Health Center Foundation, Big Brothers Big Sisters, One Kids Place, the Children's Aid Society, and Ronald McDonald House Charities. Stop by McDonald's on 1500 Fisher Street, North Bay, to see how we can serve you and the community every day.
And we welcome you back from a commercial break. Now we're going to talk about the Western Conference. Kortney, can you please be joined by Harrison from the Garrison, or as we've already established on this episode, I'm talking way too fast, Ryot. Woo! How's it going, buddy?
It's good. West time.
Yeah.
Ooh.
West side. Yeah, that's right. I'm a white man.
Oh, my God.
You got a problem with that?
I'm not touching that.
No, you don't. You don't want to touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
No, sir.
We were bopping though. You want to freestyle the West?
I'm not freestyling the West.
My favorite thing about that is that you're like, oh, it's taking a long time to like drop, and then like Ben like started skipping to
He was like, what's going on here?
London gonna beat the Firebirds. Second, I'm gonna take down the attack as well. Greyhound's gonna take down the storm.
We're doing this? Okay.
I guess so. Better than me.
Knights will chop down the birds. The spirit of God it on the attack. The Greyhounds coming in with the storm, and the Rangers stomping the otters. Nobody's better. Flow like the water.
Oh, I love Ben's addition to that.
Terrible. Yeah, that's appropriate.
No.
Anyway, maybe I'll do an episode where this doesn't come up.
Oh, that's never happening again.
What have I done?
What have I done?
These hands.
You're fulfilling your destiny, Ryot. No. Padme, my rap career, it was alive. I felt it.
Why?
We like to have fun here on the Frontline. Don't break things.
I try not to.
Anyways, yeah, so we basically said everything I was feeling right there in the. So we're done. We can go
That's
home.
the West.
Yeah, that's the West. All right, starting things off, the XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because we're Canadian. That always. Dragon Ball Z never really fit as well as Dragon Ball Z.
That's true.
You know, like Dragon Ball Z. Anyways, the London Knights finishing as league champs in the regular season because they're the London Knights. 50 wins, 14 losses. Michael Simpson having another fantastic year as well.
Yeah.
1 overtime loss, 3 shootout losses. They're going up against the Flint Firebirds. I am so sorry, Flint.
Yeah. Welcome to the playoffs. Hope you enjoy your brief stay.
Yeah, pretty much. Flint finishing 30-33, 4-1. They went 4-5-1 over the past 10. Power play, not great for the Firebirds, 16.6%. Penalty kill, 78.7%. For the Knights, power play, 32.6%. 85% on the penalty kill. Wow, that's pretty good numbers. They also finished by far and away the highest penalty penalized team at 1,065. But if we go and look at the schedule real quick, we'll see when things are going to get down between the Knights and the Firebirds. Game 1 going Friday in London. Game 2 will go Sunday, March 31st against London, or in London as well. Game 3 in Flint on the 2nd. Game 4 on the 4th in Flint. Game 5, if necessary, will be on the 5th in London. Game 7 will be the 7th in Flint. And Game 7 will go April 9th. I said Game 7 twice. Game 6 will be April 7th in Flint if necessary. And Game 7 will go in London on the 9th. Harrison, I think this is a pretty easy series to talk about. Easton Cowan just going to go out there and I think bowl over everyone. Although London's still a pretty good team without Easton Cowan as well.
Yeah, they have so many pieces that are just insane. Their goaltending, we said, Michael Simpson just having another incredible season. And of note with that power play, 32.6, as stated today by the OHL, the best power play percentage in a season of the internet age.
Ugh.
Yeah, just disgusting.
Gross.
It sucks that London's this good. It's just like, we get it already, but there's a reason. They're insane. They've had a heck of a season. What more can be said about them? Every record has just been going London's way. Everything has just been clicking terrifically. They're on a 7 streak right now. Every number you look at is an incredible number. They're the only team to not have 200 goals against this season. Just everything's going right for them.
Can we go back to the standings real quick, please? just before I add on. London finishing 322 goals for, 197 goals against, as you mentioned. Flint finishing 232 with 274 goals against. So, Harrison, at the end of this, we'll just get to the official predictions now. Will London come out on top against a watered-down Firebirds team, or will the Firebirds somehow make it an interesting series?
No. Get out your brooms. This is a sweep.
Yeah, I'm thinking sweep too. I think much like our NOJHL playoff preview, if Flint wins a game like Iroquois Falls wins against Timmins, that'll be a victory here in this one as well. So Knights in 4 for sure.
Yeah, and that's not to diminish the, progress that Flint's made this year. They've had a couple of good games. They did finish at the bottom, but you're in the playoffs this year. Slow but steady. That's the nature of junior hockey. You're going to rebuild. They're going to be a threat in a couple of years. And, hey, good things going on in Michigan, but not in this playoff.
There is some good things going on in Michigan. As the next series, we're going to talk about the Saginaw Spirit and the Owen Sound Attack. Saginaw, the only team that knows that they're going to be in the Memorial Cup as well. So even if they get knocked out, they're still going to be playing. We've seen a couple of host teams win, like St. John a couple of years ago. And then Windsor, when they hosted a few years ago, getting knocked out in the second round and then having to rest and recoup. And then they come out and take the Memorial Cup by storm. So Saginaw here, a lot of spirit, if you will, at the trade deadline, acquiring everybody and their mother and bringing back a familiar face in Josh Bloom as well. Finishing with 102 points to Owen Sound 67. The Spirit finishing tied for the most wins at 50, and then they had 16 losses, 1 overtime loss, 1 shootout loss. Owen Sound going 29-30, 6-3. And then on the power play side of things, Owen Sound actually clicking along at a pretty good power play at 30% and 81.1% on the penalty kill. Those are some good numbers on the specialty teams that should usually get you a little bit higher up in the standings, but they didn't work so well for Owen Sound. On the other side for Saginaw, 25.5 on the power play and 83.1 on the penalty kill, Harrison.
Yeah, and Saginaw was one of those teams that right off the hop, it was like, okay, yep, they know what time of year it is. They know what opportunity they have with the Memorial Cup. They called everybody and their brother and called in every favor that they had and just got everybody on the team. You stack up with some championship caliber. You get Owen Beck. You call back Josh Bloom, who's had a really good season since going to Saginaw. Came from the ECHL, I believe, and he has 40 points in 34 games, 17 goals, 23 assists. He's fitting in quite nicely over there. Saginaw knows what the mission is, and they are ready.
They are. I'm excited to see how it happens because as a fan of the Battalion, if Saginaw gets the OHL finals and North Bay happens to be there, well, both teams punch their ticket to the Memorial Cup. That could be a thing. I think it's going to come down to Saginaw and London in the Western Conference Finals.
Yep.
And that'll be a huge series.
That's going to be some of the most exciting hockey of the year.
That's going to be last year's Peterborough North Bay series.
Yeah, it will be. It's a very strong possibility, but we could also see an upset because there's still some more strong teams in the West, but those two are clearly the front runners. When you look at it, at the eyeball test, when you dig into the stats, they're the clear favorites.
Saginaw finishing with 303 goals, 215 against. Owen Sound finishing with 246 goals and 274 against. So, these two teams can put the puck in the back of the net as evidenced by Colby Barlow, just by himself in Owen Sound, basically. I want to say shout out to Dave Drinkle, who I had the opportunity to talk to 2 years in a row, now the general manager for the Spirit. He cut his teeth with the Wolves, actually, back in the day. That's where he kind of got us started. He told us throwing T-shirts into the crowd. That's how he got his start in the OHL, and now he's the general manager of a team that's going to the Memorial Cup. So hats off to you, Dave Drinkle. And I got to say, whenever we do the Team NOHA roundtable, he's there. He's very gracious with his time and very open to talk anything about the Spirit, obviously promoting his team, but he's very happy to talk about what the Spirit can offer. Because you got to think it's a little bit different if you're drafted by an American team and now you have to figure out schooling in America and all that stuff. And, how do my visas work? And, how's all this stuff going to work, and going over the border more often than other teams kind of thing. So And of course, because of Alex Christopoulos and Josh Bloom, I hope they go far. And I hope they make it to the OHL finals. I hope North Bay does too. And then I hope they both go to the Memorial Cup and everyone has a good time.
Yeah. We can all be friends.
Yeah. Looking at the schedule, though, real quick, for that first series, it'll be game 1 will be opening up in Saginaw, Michigan against Owen Sound on Thursday. Game 2 will go Saturday in Saginaw. Game 3 will go in Owen Sound on the 1st. Game 4 will go on the 3rd. If necessary, Game 5 in Saginaw will go on the 4th. Game 6 will go in Owen Sound on the 6th. And Game 7 will go on the 8th. Harrison, your prediction, sir?
Saginaw in 5.
Saginaw in 5?
I think Owen Sound has the capability of taking one away.
Yeah.
George could have a game and just shut things down. Things could not quite click for Saginaw in 1, and they're able to steal one away, but I don't think they get much more than that.
It comes down, George is definitely a good talking point. I think it's going to be the Spirit in 5 as well. It could go Spirit in 6, depending on how successful they are on shutting down Colby Barlow.
Yeah, that's if things push it. And that's not if Owen Sound plays really well. That's if Saginaw makes a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. We talk about how likely it was for the Gens in 5 over the Gens in 7. I think it's more likely it's Spirit in 4 over Owen Sound pushing it to 6.
Yeah.
But again, Colby Barlow is a freak of nature.
Yeah, you can't ever count him out.
No. He's a scary individual because at 18 years old, he had more facial hair than I did. I was like, okay, all right, Colby, moving on. Speaking of moving on, we'll talk about the Sioux Greyhounds and the Guelph Storm. If we can bring back up the standings, please, real quick. Greyhounds finishing 45-18-3-2 for 95 points. They had 286 goals on the season to 215, 22.9 in the power play, 78.9 on the penalty kill, and they'll be going up against the Guelph Storm, who finished 33-28, 6-1 for 73 points. 210 goals scored, 225 goals against, 20.6 on the power play, 78.7 on the penalty kill. So both these teams not necessarily great on the penalty kill. Also, another chance to talk to a general manager of a different team, Kyle Raftis, had his time a little bit interesting because the day before this all happened, the day before the whole Tucker Tynan stuff dropped, which we're still trying to figure out what's going on there. One thing I will say as well is John Dean, the head coach who was named in that lawsuit, former assistant coach of the Battalion, former Centennial player. I will say I'm always rooting for the Greyhounds. They're kind of my Western Conference team because they're North, and I've been to some Greyhounds games, and it's a great barn. It's a great atmosphere for playoff hockey. Also because John Dean has always been absolutely fantastic to me in my media career, and he always has time to say hello whenever he's here in town. So I hope what's going on with the whole Tynan thing is untrue. I'll let that play out before I say anything else, but John Dean's always been fantastic to me.
Yeah, and this is, I think, the series that I have the most trouble deciding on because the Sioux can either be absolutely dominant or have just glaring gaps in their defense that a team like Guelph is able to take advantage of. Guelph is kind of, in my mind, kind of the Mississauga of the West, where they can have some really solid forward pieces putting together. You got guys like Jet Luchenko, Brendan Bowman, Max Nemesnikov, who have had very good seasons, 74, 71, and 50 respectively. And you also have a guy like Braden Gillespie, who, if he has a really good game, can shut you down. But that's not to discount the firepower that the Sioux Greyhounds have. And when they get on a roll, you better stay out of their way.
Yeah, and they also have, the Storm also have former OHL Rookie of the Year Cameron Allen, who stole that over Ty Nelson. I get the whole, well, it was truly his rookie year kind of thing, but it's like, no, I'm sorry. No, that's not how that works. No, I'm sorry. Anyways.
Yeah.
I like the Greyhounds roster. I like the Storm too, to be fair, but this is a little bit easier to predict for me because the West is very top heavy, the top 4 teams, compared to the East where it was a bit of a jumble, and the bottom 4 are all kind of in the same boat. If we look at the schedule for that series again, real quick, Mr. Producer Ben, if you can bring that up again for Guelph, it'll be taking place in the Sioux, game 1 on Thursday. Game 2 will go Saturday, And then they'll head on down to Guelph for Game 3 on April 1st. Game 4 will go April 3rd. Game 5, if necessary, will go back in the Sioux. Game 6 and that's on the 5th. Game 6 in Guelph on the 7th. And Game 7 on the 9th in the Sioux. And, of course, there's some distance here between the two teams, so I'm sure that they want to get this thing done quickly. However, Harrison, I will have to say Greyhounds in 6.
I will agree. Greyhounds in 6. They just have a couple more offensive weapons that they can more consistently rely on. Jack Beck has had a heck of a season, finishing with 85 points, 37 goals, and he's been very, very good on the power play. He's had 32 power play assists. Just unbelievable point production on the power play.
Yep.
So when it comes down to it, I think the Sioux just has a bit more firepower available to them and a bit more consistent firepower.
I agree. All right, last series.
Ooh.
Here we go. It's time for, producer Ben down there having a bad time now. He's dropping his headset everywhere. Play-by-play as he puts the headset back on his head. He has yet to do so. He's taking it off again. And he's always off. Oh my goodness, this man will never cease to amaze. Now he looks like he's on Star Trek. Woo! Ooh, as he puts the headset over his eyes. Anyways, the final series, the Kitchener Rangers, who are at once the toast of the league, are the 4th seed here at 41-23-4-0, 86 points. They scored 290 goals. Not surprising when you talk about the firepower that they have. 225 goals against. They have a 23% power play, 82.5 penalty kill. They're up against the Stan Butler-led Erie Otters, who went 33-28, 5-2 for 73 points. They finished with 254 goals scored. They finished with 270 goals against. 20.6% on the power play, 75% on the penalty kill, Harrison.
Yeah, and you got to say Kitchener's a favorite in this one, A, being the higher seed, but also just with the starts of the season that they had, which seemed like they might be the most dominant team, but around trade deadline time kind of had a bit of a fall off. Not that they were bad by any means, but weren't clipping along at the same pace. Meanwhile, Erie having a better season than a lot of people predicted, and getting Ben Gaudreau early, I think, was a huge part of that. He ended the season with 21 wins, which is pretty darn good, especially on a team that is kind of in a weird spot right now. They're not exactly, workhorse, but they are, able to pull some wins out of there when they, actually have everything clicking. I guess a team like Kitchener, I don't think you quite have the edge to get past them.
Not to mention Ben Gaudreau still dealing with an injury too, so he's out for at least the first game or two.
Yeah.
He might be back. I've heard he's likely back in this series before the minimum 4 games as well. But on the other hand, it's good to see Panofemis getting his first taste of OHL playoff action as well. He went 2nd overall in the 2020 OHL priority selection to some guy named Ty Nelson. Mm-hmm. Both played on the Toronto Junior Canadiens as well. But yeah, you look at the plus goals differentials for the top 4, and then every team in the bottom 4 of the West in the playoffs was negative on the goal scoring side of things. If we look at the schedule here as well for this series, it's going to get started in Kitchener at one of the most beautiful arenas in the league, one of the oldest and richest in history, the Odd, as they say, the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. Game 1's going to go Friday, March 29th in Kitchener. Game 2 is going to go Sunday, March 31st in Kitchener as well. Game 3 will switch to Erie on the 2nd, and Game 4 will go on the 4th in Erie as well. Game 5, if necessary, back in Kitchener on the 5th. Game 6 on the 8th in Erie, if necessary, and Game 7 will go on the 9th, if necessary, in Kitchener. I don't think it's going to get to 7. I think it'll get to 6.
I think it'll get to 6.
I think it'll get to 6. Maybe. Well, I know you got me thinking about it. So I'm going to go back to my gut reaction. I think it's going to go to 6. I think it's going to be Erie. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's going to be Kitchener. I know it's kind of a cop-out to take all the top-seeded teams in the West, but there is just that much difference. Whereas in the East, it's like it could go either way.
Yeah.
But in the West, it's like these teams were clearly the cream of the crop, and these teams were clearly the best of the rest.
Yeah, you definitely saw the cream rise to the top because it was that way.
Rises to the top, brother.
And it was very much that way throughout the entire season. You basically saw the top 4 interchanging what spot they were depending on the time of year. Meanwhile, the East was just like first to 8. Woo! Everything's wacky.
Party.
So, yeah. And it's a wonder where things landed. As we said, we didn't know where the heck anybody was across the board till the very end of the season. But the West, there was a very clear divide.
Yeah,
it was basically just the bottom 2 spots. They're just like, all right, who's going to kind of slot in here? But my prediction, Kitchener in 5.
Kitchener in 5. They definitely have the firepower to take down the Otters, but if Gaudreau comes back early and plays the way that he can, I think that changes the series. That's why I'm banking on 6. I don't think he's enough to get them over the hump.
No.
But I do think it's enough to push the game to 6. If it's not Gaudreau in net, I could definitely see 5 for Kitchener. All right, I want to go back to the standings one last time before we wrap things up. I gave you a heads up of what we were talking about, but I want to ask this question now because it just came up to me. 4 teams in the OHL missed the playoffs.
Yep.
Peterborough had 48 points in the East. Niagara finished last with 42. They also finished last in the OHL. Surprise, surprise. Sarnia in the West finishing with 54 points. Windsor finishing with 54. Out of those 4, Harrison, which team do you think had the most disappointing season?
The most disappointing season? I think the team with the most disappointing season is Sarnia. And the reason I say that is you kind of expected Niagara and Windsor to not have great seasons because Windsor basically sold the farm last year in that Ryot trade that just didn't pan out for them. And you kind of expected, okay, they did that. They went for the push. It didn't pan out. They're going to have a bad season. Niagara, you never know what the heck they're doing, but it really hasn't been pushing anything forward. I think you saw some exciting things from them, and they got a gem in Charlie. And he's looked very good since he's been on the Ice Dogs, in all honesty, in getting those starting minutes. I think Charlie is going to grow to be a really, really good goaltender, and he has been. Peterborough, they won the championship last year. You knew that they were going to start a rebuild, and I think they did a terrific job of that. They sold off the assets that they need to. They got terrific return, and they could be back as soon as next year. Sarnia, they just were kind of flat. Their special teams weren't good. They had a 17.3% power play and a 71.5% penalty kill. That's not good enough. They clearly knew they weren't in a good spot, even with pieces like the LeBlancs and Vilmanis. And you knew that it wasn't those guys holding you back. They come to North Bay and they look fantastic. So it clearly was something not working there, not having enough pieces, and just things not going well for them. So if I had to choose one, I think I'd go Sarnia.
Yeah, I'm going Sarnia too, because at what point do you not say Niagara?
Yeah.
It's every year feels like it's Niagara for the past 5 years or 6 years, at least since the return since 2019. Feels like Niagara, but yeah, I'm going to go with Sarnia. Like you said, Windsor sold off the farm. Peterborough won the championship. Niagara, well, that's just too easy. But yeah, Sarnia. I mean, when your coach is the world junior coach, which I know we talked about this off air too, and your team is below 500, makes you kind of wonder.
Just a little.
Especially when you're playing a guy that you see in the league a lot in Carson Rykoff on the on the fourth line.
Still doesn't make sense to me.
Ty Nelson getting barely any minutes. But anyways, that's besides the point. Yeah, I think Sarnia, after the season that they had last year where they finally made the Western Conference Finals, and they were the team that scared me the most last year. I was terrified of Sarnia, and the whole entire time I should have been watching Peterborough, but I was sitting here being like, oh man, Sarnia just got knocked out by London. All North Bay has to do is get past Peterborough, and then Peterborough beat the Battalion. But yeah, Sarnia really scared me. They were big, they were mean, they destroyed the Battalion both times they played them last year. So to see them fall as much as they've fallen, I don't feel too bad about it, but it is I think the most disappointing season for any team. Also, a poetic note, last year, the Battalion, when they clinched the playoffs this year, or a couple of weeks ago, they clinched, and then by doing so, Peterborough was eliminated from the playoffs, which is a little bit of poetic justice. Even more poetic justice, last year, Peterborough ended North Bay's season in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final. This year, North Bay ended Peterborough's season in the regular season as the team finished the last game in North Bay.
Yeah, and, a little bit of smile on your face.
Yeah, I mean they got a ring and you don't. Also, it was kind of kind of sad to see Cam Govro wrap up his OHL career yesterday as well. But yeah, good to see him at the center ice logo doing the puck drop. So with that being said, Harrison, one last question I got for you. The biggest one yet.
Oh, boy.
The hardest question you'll ever answer.
Oh, no.
Do aliens exist? No, I'm just kidding. Harrison is an alien. Watch out. No, the biggest one. Who takes home the J. Ross Robertson?
J. Ross Robertson.
There it is. Who brings home that trophy at the end of this playoffs?
Oh, my gosh. See, there's my Homer heart.
Yeah.
Wanting to say Battalion. And then there's my ever-loving, just terrified heart of the West. I think Saginaw. I think Saginaw wins it all. The way they geared up, the pace that they're clicking on, everything seems to be going right for them.
Yep.
And even though the Knights are top of the West, even though they have just everything going for them, I think the want factor of Saginaw, knowing what they have to prove, and they've had that mindset since the very beginning of the season, I think Saginaw takes it, and they're going to have a very good Memorial Cup regardless of whether they win or not.
Yeah, I'm going... What is going on down there?
I think it's a failed bit.
Yeah.
That's the spirit.
Oh. Give me an S. S. Give me a P. P.
I can't.
You're having a bad time there, Harrison.
Yeah.
Are you the type of person that when they do the YMCA thing at the arena, you put the C the wrong way?
No, I don't even attempt it. The last few times I've been at the arena, it's been in the media booth, and I think I would be kind of shunned if I start doing the YMCA up in the media booth.
That's fair.
The away radio guy's just like, I can't see anything.
I can't see playoffs. Anyways, yeah, that's what these last two episodes have been about, is playoffs. I think Saginaw wins it too. I don't know. There's just something about general managing on easy mode in the NHL franchise that when you load up, you better win.
Yeah.
And I know that that's not the ultimate goal for them. They want the Memorial Cup, especially on home ice, but it'd be sweet to get both.
Yeah. And as we know, it's playoffs. Anything can happen. Peterborough won last year. You could see a crazy upset. But
Kitchener won in the first round against Windsor last year.
Yeah, exactly.
As the 8th seed.
And nobody expected that. And it was a
Shane.
dominant win.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's playoff season. Everything's exciting. Everything's brand new. Lots of fun hockey to watch. You got the Noge going on right now. You got the OHL about to kick it into high gear on Thursday. And, man, I'm excited.
Yep. As that guy that we quoted in the last episode sang in this song, it is the most wonderful time of the year. So I am pretty excited. Thanks so much for helping me out on this one, Harrison. It was a long one, but
it was a long one, but there's a lot to break down. And speaking of breakdowns, don't forget to tune into the North Bay Mitsubishi After Action Report for playoff home games, because we will have that on Thursday and Saturday.
Woo, beating Ben. The sound that made was so good. Last thing I want to say, I know we touched on this last week. Get out and vote often for Elliott Lake for the Craft Hockeyville. March 29th. You can vote as many times as you want. Please do it. Elliott Lake is in desperate need of a new arena. There hasn't been a northern community win Hockeyville since North Bay in 2007, which we will have an interview probably out before the time this podcast comes out with Chris Dawson, who spearheaded Hockeyville coming to North Bay. So please get out and vote for Elliott Lake. They need an arena. It helps keep the NOJHL strong. That's a league that's near and dear to our hearts. Let's make it happen. He's Harrison from the Garrison. I'm Kortney Kenny. Check us out on all the streaming platforms. And as always, keep your eye on the Frontline.
The Frontline, hosted by Kortney Kenny, the official podcast of the Powassan Voodoos.